Okay, now what we want to talk about is some of you experience the challenge of seeing 1440p or 4K on your display, saying I connected mClassic, it doesn't work, I don't see 1440p, I don't see 4K. So let's go over it, some of the challenges, problem and solution, hopefully. So let's get started with, I've got an LG OLED TV. For this demonstration, I'm going to use like 2 LG 4K TV and 1 Samsung, right? So let's start with an LG 4K TV. What we're using as a source is, I'm getting like this cheap DVD player, Blu-ray player actually, and a Nintendo Switch. So mClassic is connected. We start with the Blu-ray disc, just to show you some 4K. I got my mClassic, I plug it, power in the back of the player, and now it's in pass-through. I can see the LED is off, and if I look at the resolution, it's 1080p, great. I put it into processing mode, green, and if mClassic is working, it's a 4K TV, I should be able to see 4K, right? And 2160p, which is 4K. So mClassic, it's working, great. Now, let's move from the Blu-ray that's been upscaled by mClassic to 4K to 1440p. So I'm going to use the same cable, the same mClassic. I unplug it out of the Blu-ray player, and now I'm connected into Nintendo Switch. I'm using the HDMI extension cord that we provide in the mClassic package. Plug it, boom, and now I should be able to see Nintendo Switch. Great, okay. Let's put it into pass-through. So I put the LED off to see how it's configured, right? And I see that it's, I think it should be 720p. It's 720p, okay? So now this is a 4K TV. I'm expecting 1440p. Let's go into full mode processing mode. LED is green, which is default mode. Okay, LED green. And now I'm expecting 1440p. Okay. Yeah, all right. I can see some enhancement because my eyes has been spoiled, but I'm a little bit disappointed because I see 1080p and I don't see, in pass-through it was 720p, it went up to 1080p, so clearly mClassic is working, it's upscaling, but it's not getting 1440p. Why? So clearly what's happening on that setup is that LG OLED TV, an amazing TV, but unfortunately, by default, it doesn't support, even though it's got a hardware capability to support all the way to 4K input, it's not capable to support 1440p, by default. The reason why it's not working is because mClassic now is communicating, is checking the EDIT of the TV LG OLED. LG OLED is saying, from the EDIT definition, I don't support 1440p, and therefore, mClassic is not going to force a 1440p. So some of you requested, say, why don't you ignore the EDIT and force it? So I will show you later on in the video what can happen when you do that. So now let's go and do the same test. So clearly we are in upscale mode. So this LG OLED is showing us not 1440p, even though it was mClassic is working, but it's showing the maximum, which is 1080p. We take the exact same setup. I'm going to take the exact same cable, like that, no change, and I'm going to go into Samsung. So I'm unplugging the HDMI input, the HDMI cable from the LG OLED, Nintendo Switch, and I'm going to go into the back of a Samsung 4K TV. Done. Okay, so now let's see what happened. This is a Samsung 4K TV. Same setup that we've seen on the LG OLED. LG OLED will show mClassic upscaling from 720p to 1080p. And now, if I go with Samsung, they've got this handy button, the info. We can clearly see 2560 pixels by 1440p. Even though LG OLED is an amazing TV, it still doesn't support 1440p, and that inexpensive Samsung TV, 4K, does support it. Good. Now let's go and look at the LG OLED. I've got another example. I want to take the exact same setup, like this, you don't suspect that maybe by changing the cable and so on, it simply reflect that even though this is a 4K TV, it doesn't unfortunately support 1440p. Now let's go, same setup, unplug it. And now this is LG 4K TV, okay? So we just saw Nintendo Switch upscale by mClassic to 1440p. Let's check what's the resolution. Okay. It says 1080p. So even though this TV is advertised supporting, it's a 4K TV supporting 1440p, clearly it's not by default. Now, on this particular TV, actually by going into the settings, we should be able to support 1440p. More, all settings, pictures, okay, additional settings. And now if we go into deep color, I'm going to enable deep color on HDMI port 1. Okay, and let's see what happens. Okay. Now I just enabled the deep color mode. And, okay, 1440p. So that actually 4K TV LG does support 1440p. And 2 minutes ago, the same setup without changing anything, I could not get 1440p. So again, the fix was very simple, was by simply enabling deep color HDMI mode on the input port of the TV, and all of a sudden you get 1440p.